Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Beth, and today we will be continuing our chapter chats in Wired for Story by Lisa Cron. Now, chapter 5 is entitled Digging Up Your Protagonist Inner Issues, and basically the entire chapter is discussing how our issues are what we have to drive a story, and so it's discussing how being incorrect about something can kind of throw our world askew, and how we should be writing outlines and character bios in order to find those things out about our character and be able to start our book at the exact right point and then continue on from there. As always, we begin with a cognitive and a story secret. The cognitive is we see the world not as it is, but as we believe it to be. And the story secret is that you must know precisely when and why your protagonist worldview was knocked out of alignment. It says here that being wrong changes how we see or don't see the world. And when we're wrong, which is a lot, and then we find out that we were wrong, it kind of knocks everything out of alignment. So then we go on to you can't fix it if it ain't broke. If you don't know exactly what the problem is and what we are trying to fix in the end destination, then your story will probably be kind of a flat line and not have much movement to it. So you need to know basically what happened, why it happened, and how to get it fixed. That is great for some people, but other people like to have a basic idea and just start writing, which is also good. She says that some people have an innate sense of story, and then a lot of people don't. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But outlining does tend to help you so that you have a better sense of your protagonist and the way your story is going. She also quotes the Transformers Beast Machines television show here. So it says, the Oracle says to Optimus Prime, the seeds of the future lie buried in the past. And you really want to kind of have your character thrown off right before you start the story, as opposed to starting the story right in the moment that he comes to the realization that he is incorrect and his whole world goes askew, or far before or far after. You want to be kind of close to the moment as he's figuring out that everything's wrong and trying to make amends for that. Then there's a great outlining debate. It says that Robert Frost said, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader. He liked to just write and then rewrite later, but not do outlines. Whereas J.K. Rowling had all of the Harry Potter books completely outlined in very specifics of the worlds and the characters and everything, completely outlined by 1992, which is when she began writing Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So there are two very famous, very amazing, well-loved authors. One outlines, one did not. So it just, honestly, it kind of depends on you. Basically, that's what this entire chapter is saying. But she goes on to give us some really good points about why you should do an outline. I do not outline typically. What I do is create miniature character bios, and that is usually after I've started writing and met most of my characters, especially for the Stone Dragon Saga. I only knew a couple of the characters to start with, and then as the story progressed, I began meeting more and more of them, and I started writing on little 5x7 note cards, and I've got a huge stack of them, front, back, cramped sides, and I don't think I did one for the cab driver, but he'd be about the only character I didn't make a card for, and now I'm going to have to go check. And if I didn't make one for the cab driver in book 3, I'm gonna have to make one for the cab driver in book 3. Thanks, Beth. That's great. Way to go, man. All right. That aside, let's get back here. Basically, she says, without a premeditated destination, based on the battle between the inner issue and the protagonist's longstanding desire for the goal, it wanders, it takes a scenic route, it's going to flatline. Also, you are very unconsciously, of course, but allied to what you've already written. You love it. It's your baby. You've been working so hard on this first draft. So when you go back to do your rewrite, you are loyal to what you wrote. And even if it is terrible, horrible crap that is flatlined and has no reason for being in there and you need to fix it, what you're going to do is leave that other junk and then add more to it to try to make it feel like it's got a story arc. And that will probably just make it a little more confusing and longer. And you'll have to do another rewrite and chop even more out of it. Okay. So here is the myth and reality portion of this chapter. The myth is that you can get to know your characters only by writing complete bios. But the reality is that character bios should concentrate solely on information that is relevant to your story. So basically, she's saying here that there is definitely something like too much information when you're getting to know your characters. For instance, here is a list of questions that she found on the interview your character type lists that are floating around. You can find them, do a Google search, go on Pinterest. You can find these lists, and they range from 10 to 15 questions to like 250 questions that you should be using to interview your characters and find out more about them so you can outline and really get this book done. So here are some of the questions. Does he like his middle name? If she's stretching out in her backyard to sun herself, what kind of towel does she lie on? Does she have a favorite room? What color evokes strong memories for her? Does he have a birthmark? Does he own matching china? What is his opinion on euthanasia? All right, so some of those might be relevant to something that you're writing, but I can tell you right now that if she stretched out in her backyard to sun herself, what kind of towel does she lie on has never, ever had any relevance on anything I'm writing, even if they're stretching out to sun themselves, because it doesn't matter. There may be some joke about, oh, you're using that pink unicorn towel again, huh, Travis? But other than that, there's no reason to really know all of that. You need basics and things that really meld with your story, and you're not going to need all of that other stuff. So pick and choose, or just don't use those lists at all and make up one of your own. But there is so much information that your character could tell you, you'll get bogged down and you'll either add things that don't make sense in the story or you'll change everything just so it will make sense in the story. And that's not good for anybody. All right. Moving on. It does have a do's and don'ts for writing character bios. I'll just read you the top pieces. Do keep in mind one utterly obvious when you say it, but otherwise easy to forget truism. Story is about something that is changing. It's just about the daring and the end. So you can write some things about the before in your character bios so that you know kind of what has led up to it, but you don't need a whole bunch of stuff from his childhood if he's 33 in the book. Don't be uncomfortable about digging deep into your character's psyches. Don't hold back on account of decorum. They will tell you what you need to know, and your readers will know if you've been holding back so that you can just be nice to your characters. Don't do that. Don't try to write well. When you're writing character bios, you don't have to write it like a novel. It can be jotted down quickly. You don't have to write complete sentences. As long as it makes sense to you and you know what you're talking about, you understand it, that's all that's important. Do write short bios for every major character, even though most of what you write in these bios will not make it into the narrative. I think that kind of speaks for itself. And then she's got a little bit of a case study about making a bio and why you should do it. There's all sorts of really awesome information in there that I was really excited about reading. You should definitely check this book out. But anyway, we are now at the end of chapter checkpoint. Do you know why your story begins when it does? What clock has started ticking? What is forcing your protagonist to take action whether or not they want to? Yes, I do, but you don't get to know yet. Right. Have you uncovered the roots of your protagonist's specific fears and desires? Do you know what her inner issue is? Can you trace it all back to specific events in her past? Do you know her inner issue then thwarted her desire right up to the moment the story begins? Do you know how her inner issue thwarted her desires? Yes, I do actually, for about 3 of my 7. So I really need to go back and write better bios because I haven't really done bios for them yet. and I really, really need to. I have 1 or 2 sentences for each character, but not enough. Have you made your characters reveal their deepest, darkest secrets to you? Remember, we'll know if you're holding back. Mostly, but there are a few that are holding back a little, and we'll get to that. I promise. When writing character bios, are you being specific enough? This is something that's really important. She says that if you cannot close your eyes and envision what's happening with your outline in your bios, if you cannot see it, then it's too generalized and you won't be able to describe it well enough in your story. So when you close your eyes, can you envision what happens, or is it still very conceptual? If it's still conceptual, then you need to go back and get more detail. And finally, do you know where the story is going? This isn't to say you need to know how it ends when you write word one, although that's not really a bad idea. I never know how it ends, because if I know how it ends, then the ending changes, and then I still don't know how it ends. But if you have some clue where it's headed, then that's great, because otherwise, how can you be sure that you've sown the seeds for the story correctly? And that is all for chapter 5. I will have chapter 6 up for you guys sometime soon. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you're enjoying this. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave them down below for me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.